April 26, 1987, 1:23 in the morning. Inside the control room of reactor number 4 at the Chernobyl Nuclear Power Plant, something goes terribly wrong. Seconds later, the reactor explodes. 1,000-ton steel lid is thrown into the air. The building is torn apart. Radioactive material begins drifting across Europe. It will become the worst nuclear disaster in human history. But the explosion was only the beginning, because in the hours and days that followed, hundreds of thousands of people would walk towards the reactor, not away from it. Firefighters, engineers, soldiers, miners. Some knew the risks, many did not, many would never come home. Today, 40 years later, most people know Chernobyl through the HBO series Chernobyl. Thanks to that series, the names Valery Legasov and Boris Sherbina are widely known. But behind the story were hundreds of thousands of others, people whose names most of the world has never heard. This video is about them, the forgotten heroes of Chernobyl. When Reactor 4 exploded, the night shift was on duty inside the control room. Among them was Leonid Toptunov, a 25-year-old senior reactor control engineer. After the explosion, Toptunov and shift supervisor Alexander Akimov refused to leave the plant. They believed the reactor could still be stabilized. They walked through corridors filled with radioactive steam and debris, opening valves manually. What they didn't know was that the reactor core had already been destroyed. Both men received massive radiation doses. Both died weeks later in a Moscow hospital. For years they were blamed for the disaster, but later investigations revealed serious design flaws in the reactor itself. Regardless of blame, one thing is certain: when the worst happened, they did not run. They stayed and they tried to fix it. Just 6 minutes after the explosion, the first firefighters arrived. Lieutenant Vladimir Pravik led the crew from the fire station located at the plant. He was only 23 years old. Another team arrived soon after, led by Lieutenant Viktor Kabinok. Their mission was simple: stop the fire from spreading to Reactor 3, because Chernobyl had 4 reactors standing side by side. The firefighters climbed onto the roof of the turbine hall. What they didn't know was that pieces of the reactor core were scattered around them. Radiation levels on that roof were deadly. Their gear protected them from heat, but not radiation. Within minutes, they were receiving deadly doses. Vladimir Pravik, Viktor Kabinok, Vasily Ignatenko, Nikolai Titinok, Vladimir Chishura. Most of them died within weeks from acute radiation syndrome. They were between 23 and 28 years old. In the days after the explosion, engineers faced another terrifying possibility. The molten reactor core was slowly burning its way downward through the building. Below it was a large pool of water. If the molten core reached the water, it could cause a massive steam explosion. Someone had to drain the pool. 3 plant engineers volunteered: Alexei Nanenko, Valery Bespalov, Boris Baranov. They entered the dark, flooded basement beneath the destroyed reactor. The water was radioactive. The corridors were pitch black. Eventually they found the valves and opened them. The water began to drain. For years people believed the 3 men died shortly afterward, but their story was not true. 2 of them lived for decades. Still, when they walked into the basement, they believed they might not come back. Perhaps the strangest chapter of the Chernobyl cleanup happened on the roof of Reactor 3. Fragments of radioactive graphite and fuel had been scattered across the roof. Robots were sent in to clear the debris, including German Joker. They failed. Their radiation destroyed the electronics. So it was decided to use a different solution. Soldiers were sent onto the roof with shovels. They had about 60 to 90 seconds to push radioactive debris back into the destroyed reactor building. Then they ran back. One run, then the next soldier. Thousands of young men took part. Many were reservists barely in their 20s. They became known as biorobots. Most of the world still does not know their names. The operation was organized by General Nikolai Tarakanov. He commanded the troops responsible for cleaning the roof. Tarakanov insisted on strict time limits to reduce radiation exposure. Each soldier had only seconds on the roof. Later, he would say that those young men showed incredible courage. Many years later, when the HBO series Chernobyl was released, Tarakanov watched it himself. He said he liked the series and especially the actor who portrayed him. But he also reminded people that the real heroes were the soldiers who ran onto the roof. Most of the names were never recorded. General Nikolai Tarakanov, who also received a significant radiation dose, is still alive today at the age of 91. In total, between 600,000 and 800,000 people took part in the Chernobyl cleanup. Firefighters, soldiers, engineers, miners, doctors, construction workers. Many were incredibly young. Radiation is invisible, you cannot see it, smell it or feel it. Yet these people faced it anyway. Not for fame, not for recognition, but because someone had to. 40 years later, many of these people are gone. Some died soon after the disaster, some lived for decades with its consequences. We cannot name them all, there were too many, but we can remember.